This week on the show, eBay finally acknowledges some technical issues. Etsy misses gross merchandise sales again. And Louis DeJoy says, I quit. What is up, Galaxians? Welcome to episode number 286 of the Galaxy CDs, Rocks, and Flips Reseller Talk podcast, bringing you all the reselling news you need to know. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host. We've got updates this week from eBay, Mercari, Walmart, Etsy, and the United States Postal Service. So let's not beat around the bush. There will be timestamps to the various segments in the show notes and the video description down below if you want to go to a particular part. No What Sold recap this week. We did one on Wednesday at the live. Be sure to join us this Wednesday for another live episode at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll be showing, I had a lot of questions about my listing process and my photo process for books. So we'll be going over that on Wednesday. But today, let's do some reselling news.
News updates.
So yeah, we've been talking about this for quite some time. eBay, ongoing technical issues, from problems with the listing template to the app just completely crashing, buy it now not working, add it to cart not working, offers not working, and so on and so forth. And eBay finally has acknowledged that they are, in fact, having these problems. This article appears on Value Added Resource, courtesy of Liz Morton. And as always, these will be linked in the show notes and the video description down below. eBay has updated their ongoing technical issues community post, finally acknowledging multiple issues users say have been plaguing the site for months. If you have been playing along here for the last several months, this is a drum I have been beating on this channel for some time. Basic functionality of the site not working while eBay continues to pursue things like AI and various other technologies, when in the normal course of a day, buyers and sellers just can't do some of the most basic things. And to their credit, better late than never, I guess, eBay has finally started to acknowledge it. The thread, which was most recently updated on February 19th, shows problems with listing templates, the mobile app, buy it now, add to cart, make offers, and watch list glitches, also impacting the app. The post from eBay said the following are open technical issues that have been reported and we are still tracking. If you are impacted by one or multiple of these, please consider shaking your mobile app or selecting the question mark in the bottom right-hand corner of the eBay homepage to report the technical issues. To expedite your issue, please attach the alert number associated with your issue below. So the verbiage there would indicate to me that despite not publicly acknowledging these things, they have been tracking them, and they have whatever, to not great effect apparently, but they have been aware of them and have been trying to work on them. And there are ticket numbers available for these. Sellers are unable to list an item due to an error message. Well, this is embarrassing. We're sorry, but the application isn't working right this second. Please try again later. And then they reference a particular alert. Sellers unable to edit listing template as the page goes blank upon clicking the edit option. And then there's an alert. And again, there will be a link to this. So if you want to go and check this out and submit your own claim with these alert numbers, you can have access to that. Buy it now, add to basket, make offer, add to watch list options, and listing images are not showing in the eBay application. And again, an alert. To be fair, as is the case with many things on eBay, these are things that are affecting some sellers and not others, affecting some buyers and not others. It's not consistent across the entire platform. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing any business if add to cart wasn't working all the time. So these are just, and having spent some time in tech and in the auto industry, these intermittent, non-consistent problems are always the hardest to fix. I'm not trying to be an apologist for eBay not getting this thing worked. Lord knows I've been harping on it for months now. But they are hard to identify where the root cause is and to fix them. So again, credit to eBay for finally publicly acknowledging this. Longtime eBay seller and YouTuber James Helferstay says he's been experiencing all three of these problems for months and that they have been negatively impacting his sales. There's a link to his most recent YouTube video about this problem if you want to go check that out. There have been a myriad of reports to eBay and to various Facebook groups and to the eBay community posts as well. It's not surprising, Liz continues, that several of these issues seem to be specific to the mobile app experience. eBay has been doing some major tinkering with the app recently, including forcing an update that left many UK users, in particular with older devices, no longer able to use it. We talked about that. It was either last week or 2 weeks ago. So again, problems seem to be focused on the mobile app. Desktop seems for most people to be working okay. You can let me know in the comments down below if you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify what your current level of experience is with all of that. Sellers who use eBay standard envelope for shipping small, inexpensive items like trading cards have been reporting major problems with tracking over the last few weeks, which of course could get very expensive if buyers file claims. Another technical issue not acknowledged in the previous message, although they do. I will get to an update on this as well, but a couple of notes from eBay sellers over again on the eBay community boards have noticed since about 2/1/2025 that the eBay standard envelopes are no longer having tracking information updated on eBay. Is this a problem? The user said on the eBay side, or is USPS no longer providing the information? And of course, the important question, how will insurance work in the event of the claim when the package never shows received by the post office? Going as far back, another said, as the 7th, not a single eBay standard envelope has tracked, causing problems already. Some have already been delivered and positive feedback received, but others, buyers are demanding to ship the item because no tracking has occurred. The problem is USPS or eBay's connection with the post office. We've been using it since it came out, and you can get a skip 1 in 10 or 15 times as expected, which is, as we've talked about with the post office in particular. I had a case recently where an item, I dropped it off with my bulk scan sheet. It did not get an acceptance scan here in Ohio. It didn't get any scans until it got all the way to Florida. So this probably went through at least 1, if not 2 hubs before getting to Florida. Not a single scan. So some of this may be that, some of it may be a technical issue, which we will get into here in a second. But they show up somewhere along the route a few days later. Not necessarily been the case. We're looking at a 100% missing rate right now with nothing showing up anywhere. And the fact that some are even delivered with positive feedback shows that it is a failure throughout the entire system. eBay has finally acknowledged again that the standard envelope tracking is an issue, and they say they're working to resolve the problem and will provide, importantly, protections for impacted sellers. Their note says, we are aware of an issue with eBay standard envelope shipments not displaying tracking events on eBay. Now, that is interesting also. They say it's not displaying those tracking events. It does not say that those tracking events are not occurring. So I don't know. Again, difficult to decipher from that, but the verbiage there at least would indicate to you that this may be a problem actually with the display of that tracking rather than the tracking not occurring at all. Don't know. Again, just from what this says, hard to decipher, but that's my take. We're working to resolve this issue and are in the process of updating the display of tracking events for the impacted shipments. If your shipment is impacted and you have an item not received claim due to this issue, your item will be eligible for the included shipment protection. Additionally, eBay will protect your service metrics for these item not received cases. That verbiage would indicate that there's actually a problem with the tracking. So they're aware that there's a problem of some sort and they're working to fix it. The last update on this was 2/22. Hopefully in the first part of the week, this will be resolved and people can go back to using that service with confidence. eBay made an update to the live animal policy, which is going to leave a lot of sellers in a pretty bad spot. They are going to stop the sales of fish and aquatic invertebrates. This is, I don't know how big a business it is to eBay, but there are a lot of sellers who participate in this that are being given pretty short notice that this is going away. eBay sellers of fish and aquatic invertebrates received a surprising update last week, informing them of changes to the live animal policy, stopping sales on the platform next month. Affected users received the following email from eBay today. We are writing to inform you of an important update to our selling policies concerning live animals on eBay that directly impacts your current listings. So if you had listings in this category, you probably have received this message from eBay. If you're contemplating starting to sell this stuff on eBay, you might want to make note of this. As part of our commitment to ensuring a safe and responsible marketplace and in compliance with regulatory guidelines, eBay has decided to limit the types of live animals that can be listed and sold on our platform. This change will be implemented 30 days after the receipt of this email, and we kindly request your cooperation in complying with this new policy. The following insects and animals are allowed, including bees, feeder insects such as crickets, Dubai roaches, earthworms, and mealworms, ladybugs, hatching eggs provided they aren't from migratory birds or endangered species, and the seller provides domestic only shipping. That's it. Please review your current listings and remove any that don't comply with our updated policy. Thank you for your understanding and for selling on eBay. We appreciate your prompt attention to this matter and your cooperation in maintaining the integrity and safety of our marketplace. There's no indication in that particular message that eBay will be taking down listings that violate this policy, but I can only assume that since they recognize which sellers are already having listings in this, that will be kind of the end result, that they're just going to take these down if you don't already. The email says the new policy won't be enforced for 30 days. It does appear that they've already updated the live animal policy page to reflect the changes. There were a whole bunch of things that used to be able to be sold there. Live bait, such as minnows, shiners, earthworms, mealworms, lobsters, mice sold specifically as food for pets, stud services, tadpoles, and tropical fish. It was specific that pets and other live animals not included in that list are not allowed. The new version is just what I read to you. It is a very, very narrow list. Again, it does include sea monkeys. Importantly, if you're a seller of sea monkeys, you're in the clear. That's going to be allowed. Sellers need to ensure they have the necessary government permits and also guarantee safe overnight shipping. Pets and other live animals not described again are not allowed. That verbiage with the government permits and the guarantee of safe overnight shipping also appears to be new as well. Liz notes that the fact that cockroaches are still allowed to be sold through the site may seem particularly ironic to those who've been following the ongoing legal fallout from the 2019 cyber stalking scandal, where eBay security personnel sent live cockroaches as well as other disturbing deliveries as part of a harassment campaign against Ina and David Steiner of e-commerce bites. Though, in fairness, according to the court documents, the insects were not purchased on eBay. Silver linings. The live animal crackdown in the U.S. comes just days after an even stricter policy update was put into place in Australia, which now allows only the sale of the aforementioned and ever popular sea monkeys. Sellers have taken Reddit to share their disappointment and suggestions for other possible alternatives, with many suggesting a site called Aquabid. There are thousands of sellers of live animals on eBay, said one. Being one, I generate a good amount of income from their site selling live fish and spent a significant amount of money to upgrade my setup at the end of the year for this. This is terrible news. I can confirm as well, said another, I'm a pretty prominent seller on eBay, and this will cut my income by almost 80%. With only the 30-day notice as well, it has me scrambling to try to figure out next steps. Some speculated that eBay is cracking down on these sales due to higher rates of claims in the category, while others believe eBay may have gotten in trouble or received warnings from government regulators about lax enforcement of the previous policy, which allowed some prohibited items to still be sold on the site. You may recall eBay's faced some scrutiny for various things that have been sold on their site, not necessarily in the live animal category, that are not permissible. Increased regulatory enforcement and or pressure from investors to ensure compliance is also very likely during this change, especially since they are still under investigation and require enhanced compliance monitoring due to that cyber stalking scandal that we just talked about, and the DOJ appealing last year's dismissal of an EPA lawsuit seeking to hold the company liable for more prohibited items such as pesticides, restricted chemicals, and illegal emissions control cheat devices sold on the platform. If you're a seller of live animals, fish, and aquatics in particular, let us know in the comments how you feel about this, and have you sorted any next steps? Is the site that was mentioned there, Aquabids, a viable alternative? To be completely fair, I don't dabble in this category either as a buyer or a seller, but I've never heard of that site, so I don't know how big it is. Obviously, when these things disappear from eBay, consumers who are interested in purchasing them will look for alternatives, and if that is one that is in the forefront, getting an account set up over there probably is not a bad idea. This article over on e-commerce bites, who we just talked about, is about the science behind eBay best offers. This was really kind of an interesting, uh, it's kind of a mixed bag, but UCLA did a study where academics studied the behavior of both buyers and sellers on eBay, and in a new report, shared some conclusions over how each side could best use best offer strategies to influence the outcome of the deal. So again, they're approaching this from both sides of the equation. So the information that they provide to one party runs counter to the information they provide to the other. So I'm not sure net this is going to amount to a lot of change. But UCLA took part in the research, which was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. In a press release that announced the study, the university's media relations department stated, an analysis of bargaining exchanges on eBay shows that when a response to a buyer's first offer wasn't quick, the more likely a seller was to accept the buyer's second offer. So if you didn't, I assume, either accept or immediately reject the offer and you just kind of let it sit there as a seller, you were statistically more likely to accept a buyer's second offer, which stands to reason. I can only assume that the second offer is higher than the first offer because you didn't respond immediately. So this indicates that taking some time, not responding immediately, may accrue to your benefit as a seller. Slow responses reveal that the seller actually finds an offer attractive, but they're not ready to pull the trigger, apparently. Therefore, the buyer should follow up with another offer if they want to seal the deal. Again, that definitely accrues to the seller's benefit. As a buyer, they're saying if you didn't get rejected essentially immediately and you want the item, it may be in your benefit to put in a better second offer. However, the study noted buyers get discouraged by slow responses, and sellers may be driving buyers away by responding slowly, according to the research. So the other part of that is that buyers send an offer, they don't get a response right away, and they just go and find something else. They move on from that particular listing. So again, for my money, always from a customer service standpoint, a quick response, be it positive or negative to the offer, is always more beneficial than just appearing to ignore it. I don't think personally, and this is just anecdotal, I didn't do a study like UCLA. Anecdotally, from a customer service standpoint, I just feel like that makes more sense. Even if your response is to reject the offer, that quick response for most customers will feel like a better experience. In addition, researchers says sellers who reject an offer quickly signal that the buyer has missed the mark by a long shot. Unless the buyer is willing to go much higher in price, it may not be worth making another offer. Ironically, if sellers take the advice, the article continues, and respond quickly, it could backfire if buyers also take the researchers' advice, since they advise buyers it may not be worth making a second offer if they get a fast rejection. And again, here comes the point, which is not really mentioned in this study at all, about the back and forth of making a counter offer. This appears to only look at either offer acceptance or offer rejection. There's no indication, at least in this article, about what the counter offer process looks like. So for me, I probably accept because I've got a minimum acceptable offer set on all of my listings. So I don't even see an offer until it already has reached an amount that I've decided that I'm willing to part with the item for. So I probably accept 99% of the offers that are sent to me, and I do it right away because I just want to turn through inventory. Let me know in the comments down below what your approach is to sending, accepting, responding to offers. I'm always curious what other sellers are doing on things like that. The UCLA announcement, it did explain the methodology. They said they used a set of data from 2012 and 2013 that was recently made available by eBay. So again, this is 12-year-old customer behavior. So I wonder how up to date those behaviors are. Have people changed in 12 years? I think they probably have. The authors analyzed about 1 million exchanges in a large number of sales categories. They also, interestingly, created a few eBay accounts from which they made, according to this article, thousands of offers to hundreds of sellers, making each seller 10 to 20 offers for collectible cards such as Pokemon and baseball cards. The article notes, hopefully the researchers honored their best offers to active sellers. Yeah, hopefully if they made an offer and it was accepted, they went ahead and bought the item. So let me know what you think of that. But I thought that was a really interesting study about buyer behavior, even though the data is unfortunately a little old. Last week we talked about Amazon crushing Q4. This week, Walmart announced their earnings, and their earnings were also very strong. This article, Value Added Resource, Q4 earnings show strong marketplace growth in collectibles and other high value categories. We have talked on this show over the last several months about Walmart's shots across the bow of eBay and their vertical categories. They're in now the luxury handbag market. They're in automotive and all these categories that eBay had really focused on. And it is paying big dividends, apparently, for Walmart. They reported Q4 and full year financial results this week, revealing strong e-commerce growth, particularly again in collectibles and other key high value categories where the company is actively working to take market share from competitors like the aforementioned eBay. In a company press release, Senior VP of Marketplace and Fulfillment Services, Manish Janja, shared that U.S. e-commerce sales grew 20% in Q4, largely attributed to those continued successes in bringing higher income shoppers to the site. We talked about that, last month when they announced their new foray into luxury handbags. And I made the comment at the time, if I was a well-to-do collector of luxury handbags, I wasn't convinced that Walmart would necessarily be top of mind when I wanted to look for luxury handbags. But apparently that strategy is working because they say they have managed to attract those higher income shoppers to the site. So good for them. Our U.S. marketplace grew 34% in the last quarter, continuing strong trends we saw all year. They said this includes achieving our highest ever sales day and setting a record for the highest single day conversion rate during the holidays. A broad assortment of general merchandise and our relevance with customers contributed to a 20% growth in U.S. e-commerce sales in Q4, our 11th consecutive quarter of double-digit growth. We're going to talk here, I think, in the next article about Etsy's experience, and we've talked over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, to be fair, about the lack of that sort of growth on kind of the legacy e-commerce platforms, eBay, Etsy, and so on. Walmart and Amazon continue to buck that trend with massive growth and growth consecutive quarter after quarter after quarter. 11 consecutive quarters of double-digit growth is just an astonishing result. We continued gaining market share with upper income households, so that twice in this statement they mentioned that was a big win for them. Higher income shoppers represented the majority of Walmart's market share increase for another straight quarter. It's clear that we are in a great position to continue growing together. So that segment is, I don't know if they're migrating from eBay and or Amazon or Etsy or some combination of all of those, or if they have just added looking at and shopping on Walmart as part of their mix. It's unclear. Obviously, Walmart's going to put the best spin on it and make it seem like they're just stealing those customers. They are obviously increasing market share, so regardless of customers' motivation, it's working to Walmart's advantage. The release goes on to show multiple new categories where Walmart is seeing growth, including, again, premium beauty products, tires and automotive, pre-owned electronics and fashion, and collectibles, even going so far as to say they are targeting a, quote, growing audience of enthusiasts in what is undoubtedly a direct callback to the eBay CEO, Jimmy Ionone's enthusiast buyer initiatives that we've talked about here quite a bit in these same categories, which Walmart is clearly aiming to take a bite out of. And it's not just enthusiast buyer language Walmart is taking on as their own. Their foray into these high-value categories has largely been directed by a team of ex-eBay talent who appear to have been strategically recruited for this exact purpose. I covered that a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to go back through this list of former eBay executives who have now joined the team at Walmart, but the strategy of poaching those people from eBay and creating a better mousetrap, apparently, over on Walmart is definitely working for Walmart. This article over on e-commerce bites, I just mentioned Etsy. Their gross merchandise sales dropped 8.6% in the fourth quarter. We've talked about their kind of flat sales performance. Now it is actually dipping. That is a pretty stout drop when, again, you consider that Amazon and now Walmart have both reported big double-digit growth. The fact that Etsy's was down 8.6% is not a good trend. Their GMS, which they call gross merchandise sales, was $3.3 billion in the fourth quarter of 2024, which was down again 8.6% year over year. The company said the decline was a result of pressure on consumer discretionary product spending, challenging year over year comparisons in a shortened holiday season, category mixed, and a highly promotional and competitive retail environment. To be fair, those are all the things that all of these platforms were dealing with. This was not exclusive to Etsy. It wasn't just Etsy that was dealing with pressure, inflationary pressure on consumer discretionary product spending and so on, and a shortened holiday season. All platforms were dealing with that, and some were able to capitalize on it with good strategies and have success. Etsy was not one of them. I think we talked about eBay having kind of the same problem. They're trying to grow their way out of these negative quarterly results by increasing fees or promoting ad campaigns and offsite marketing and all that, rather than growing their business. And obviously, businesses can grow because Walmart and Amazon just continue to do that, while Etsy continues to bleed both buyers and sellers. Etsy, as we've talked about, also owns Depop and Reverb marketplaces. The consolidated GMS for all three marketplaces was $3.7 billion, which was down 6.8% year over year and down 6.9% on a currency neutral basis because they do have sales overseas and in other markets. Despite the year-over-year decline in sales, Etsy said it had its highest ever quarterly revenue in the fourth quarter, but that was little solace to sellers unless they also happen to be shareholders in the company. I don't know. I didn't look to see what Etsy's stock did on this. My expectation is that it probably took a pretty good beating on this announcement. Etsy did provide the following information in the fourth quarter and full year earnings report. The GMS was weak on a year-over-year basis in October and November, with relative acceleration in December, which is partially attributed to the Cyber 5 timing shift. So it sounds like their spin on it was that October and November were not very good, but December was fantastic, which goes back a little bit to what Walmart had said also. Their December was a record-breaking month, so there's some merit in that. Active buyers, 89.6 million, which is a decrease of 2.6% year over year. So again, losing active buyers. We reactivated a record 9.8 million lapsed buyers, which was up 1.3% from the prior year, and they acquired 6.9 million new buyers. So they attracted new business, new buyers, at least new people shopping on the site, but apparently are bleeding long-time buyers on the site. That's what those numbers say to me. You can let me know if my analysis of that is wrong, but for them to be down 2.6%, but be up and increasing the numbers of new or returning buyers, people who have been absent for some time, indicates to me that they're losing a core constituency of their buyer group. GMS per active buyer on a trailing 12-month basis was also down 3.5% year over year to 121 in the fourth quarter. So that means that their active buyers were spending less money. It's hard to say why that might have been. Again, economic headwinds, sellers selling lower average selling price merchandise. There's too many factors really for me to be able to judge what happened there, but their active per buyer spend is also down. Number of habitual buyers was 6.4 million, down 9.5% year over year, which goes to what I just said. Their core constituency of buyers, it dropped nearly 10%, which is, if you're losing your most loyal buyers, at a rate faster than you're gaining new buyers, that is not a recipe for success. And it says to me, again, guy sitting in my basement, not in the C-suite of any of these companies, that that something they're doing is not right. They're spending a ton of money on advertising and marketing to attract new people to the site, but then they appear to be unable to keep them on the platform. So that, and the net result of that is lost sales. Etsy CEO Josh Silverman said in today's announcement, despite facing significant gross merchandise sales headwinds in 2024, we're proud to have delivered year-over-year revenue growth and very strong profitability while simultaneously investing in our future. Foundational improvements in the Etsy marketplace, particularly in quality, reliability, and in making our app a place for discovery, are already enhancing customer experiences, which we believe will further differentiate the Etsy experience, driving consideration and purchase frequency as we work to get back to GMS growth. So his spin on it is we're doing all the right things, putting in kind of reshaping the foundation of the site, of the app, so that when we get those new buyers, they will now stick around. Only time will tell if that is actually working. Again, anecdotally, the number of people that I have that complain to me about their experience on Etsy would indicate that that may not necessarily be the case. But you can let me know what you think of that. But Etsy continues to struggle. Mercari made an update. We talked a little bit about this in the live on Wednesday last week. They have updated their shipping prices, and probably, I don't know how many people this will affect, but they did announce also a new policy cracking down on oversized packages with what could potentially be a significant new penalty fee. So this is an interesting one. Mercari announced these shipping price changes amidst carrier rate increases. Those all went into effect some time ago. Mercari is a little bit behind the curve on getting these out. The changes went into effect on February 18th. They announced these on the 17th, so they really didn't give anybody much notice. For new or edited listings, old listings will automatically be updated starting on March 10th. So anything that you list now falls under the new rates. Anything that is already listed apparently will not be affected by these increases until March 10th. They said in their announcement, each year shipping carriers adjust their rates to account for factors like inflation, costs, and demand. As a result, we're updating prepaid label rates starting February 18th with a 1% increase on average. View the updated rates here. There is a list. Again, this will be linked in the show notes and the video description down below. The good news, they are introducing USPS Ground Advantage for up to 20 pounds. This cost-effective option includes the convenience of USPS package pickup, a great choice for heavier shipments. It does also reflect lower rates on some USPS labels as part of the post office's changes in some of those things. Some rates went up, some rates went down. The same is occurring on Mercari. They do indicate that this is a 1% increase on average, but any particular package may be more or less than it was previously. Lower rates on select labels, they say, now with 12 ounces at $6.29 versus $6.34, 1 pound, $7.29 versus $7.34, and UPS SurePost and FedEx Economy 2-pound labels now $8.29 versus $8.49. So again, some areas the prices actually did go down. As I have mentioned here several times, I don't use their labels personally because they don't offer the exact rates that USPS provides through other third-party shippers, and in some cases they're not actually cheaper. So I personally don't use them. You can let me know what you think of that strategy in the comments down below. Mercari prepaid labels still offer an average, they say, of 40% savings compared to retail carrier rates. That is true. It's cheaper to still purchase this label through Mercari than it would be to go to the counter at the post office, but it's not necessarily cheaper than it would be if you used Shippo, ShipStation, Pirate Ship, or one of the other services. Plus, every label offers up to $200 in shipping protection and $20 for first-class envelopes. The new rates take effect again February 18th, so that was last week. Automatic updates will begin on March 10th. Along with that good news, however, Mercari is also giving some bad news. A new 8% penalty fee is being introduced for all shipments where the carrier says the weight and the dimensions were larger than stated, which resulted in a shipping charge adjustment. So we've all had that experience where we either mismeasured or misweighed an item and got a charge back. Sometimes those are in error. I probably get one or two a month where the United States Postal Service sends me an adjustment for a package saying it was one size and weight when it was in fact another, and I have to dispute that. Pirate Ship makes that very easy to do. I don't know what the situation is over on Mercari, but they clearly have had enough of paying these extra fees for these things that are either mistakenly mismeasured and weighed or maybe deliberately done to keep the price down. Penalty for underpaid shipping labels starting again on March 10th. Items exceeding the purchase label's actual weight or dimensional weight will incur an 8% penalty fee on the total adjusted shipping price. So on whatever the new total is. So if you had it in and the shipping charge was $10 and that was incorrect, and the shipping charge is now $15, this 8% penalty will not be just on the $5 difference. It will be on the total $15. So bear that in mind. The additional shipping charges are assessed while the package is in transit when the shipping carrier provides the actual weight and or dimensional weight. Double checking your package weight and measurements helps to avoid unexpected fees and contributes to maintaining low shipping costs for the Mercari community. Learn more here, and there is a link in this article. Shipping is the bane of most sellers, particularly new sellers who don't know about dimensional weight, and they put in whatever a weight on an item, be it on Mercari or on eBay or wherever, and then come to find that the thing is actually considered oversized, and there's a lot more fees, a lot more shipping charges. This is a situation where Mercari has basically been dealing with apparently for some time and have just reached the breaking point. They're not alone in dealing with the growing costs of shipping charge adjustments. We just talked about this last week. Facebook Marketplace recently announced they're doing away with prepaid labels altogether in a move some believe may be driven at least in part by these escalating costs. They did also, Mercari, provide additional information in a help page about these shipping overage charges, showing for very large items like furniture, the actual penalty could reach an eye-watering $2,500. If the actual weight or dimensional weight provided by the shipping carrier is higher than the label used for a Mercari provided label, you will be charged that weight less the amount already paid. So you're only going to pay the difference in the shipping. So again, in my example from earlier, you'll pay the $5 plus the 8% on the total amount. If Mercari does not provide a label for that weight, then the carrier residential rates for Zone 7, including all surcharges and an 8% fee, will apply, less the amount already paid. If the item is over 150 pounds in actual weight or dimensional weight, it will be billed at a flat rate of $2,500. So if you are shipping larger, heavier items and you're using Mercari labels, you better make awfully sure that you've got the correct information in your listings and when you create your label so that those charges are correct, because if not, and it's over 150 pounds, you are in for a beatdown at $2,500. That is shocking. Starting March 10th, rather, again, items exceeding the purchase label's actual weight will incur an 8% penalty fee on the total adjusted shipping price. The additional shipping charges will be assessed while the package is in transit and the weight or dimensions are provided by the carrier. They also provided a chart showing the maximum dimensional weights for the different shipping services, which is helpful so you can get an idea how big and how heavy an item can be within the various different shipping services. So that's a handy little chart that they have. Sellers, of course, express concerns over being charged penalties incorrectly, with one Reddit post already having over 100 responses. They're adding an 8% penalty on top of adjusted shipping charges. I'm not sure about you all, but I've been selling for years and only have been having issues lately with incorrect charges on shipping weights, primarily with FedEx, which is the one I hear the most complaints about. And I have a proper scale and ruler and all. It's already hard enough to dispute these cases. I can only imagine how much worse it will get. Again, I don't use FedEx, so I don't have any personal experience with that, but I see sellers talk all the time about getting these adjustments on eBay, in particular from FedEx, for weight and or dimension adjustments that can be quite expensive. And now you're going to add, if you're on Mercari, an 8% fee on top of that. Again, this all assumes that these are things done in good faith, that they are just an error, not a purposeful misrepresentation of the size and weight to try to keep those costs down. But my guess would be that Mercari has determined that this is happening frequently enough that it is not just mistakes. This is definitely one of the biggest loser moves yet. Said another, that's a terrible way to do it. I understood if you went over the weight and it charges you for the next shipping option, that made sense. But penalizing sellers for what is essentially a fee for making a mistake, add the fact that carriers screw up the weight and dimensions all the time, is absurd. I don't know that I agree with that. $2,500 seems particularly egregious, but a penalty fee for bad behavior, if it's a mistake and it's a one-off, I get where you'd be a little salty about it. But my best guess is this has been happening frequently enough that they felt they had no recourse but to really bring the hammer down on this. Let me know in the comments if you're a seller on Mercari, or even if you're not, what you think about an 8% fee up to $2,500. Yikes. Last bit of news, and this will come as many people have already talked about this, but I did want to cover it here. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy to resign after a contentious 5 years leading the U.S. Postal Service. This was met with much enthusiasm, although there's also the idea of be careful what you wish for, because the alternative might be worse. Postmaster Louis DeJoy was defiant as ever in his letter to the Board of Governors, informing them of his decision to leave the U.S. Postal Service and advising them to find his successor. He has battled establishment thinking and chafed against regulatory oversight during his 5-year tenure as he sought to transform the service. Postmaster General, he said, is a demanding role made more difficult by the devastating condition I found the Postal Service in when I arrived and the almost unceasing resistance to change without offering any viable solutions, he noted, from stakeholders motivated by both parochial and political purposes, he wrote in his letter to the board. The simplest and most obvious ideas and solutions receive illogical and irrational scrutiny from those that have no responsibility for ensuring the financial viability of the post office. This, combined with industry lobbying, has held the organization back in the past from making the necessary changes. I have fought against this, and as a result, I believe that I can fairly say that my tenure has been one of high expectations and vigorous action. I would not disagree with that. I don't. It's interesting to note that he doesn't talk about particularly stellar results. He talks about high expectations and lots of action, which he did in fact take, but not necessarily that those resulted yet in any real improvements. In his letter to the board, he took credit for putting the Postal Service in a stronger position, pointing to the most recent quarter's performance, its delivery of COVID test kits, and having served the American people through an unprecedented pandemic and through a period of high inflation and sensationalized politics. He also criticized the approach that the USPS had formerly taken to the package shipping industry, which he called ill-conceived and not compelling to the market. He said, our new package shipping products are extremely popular and are overtaking the marketplace. That leaves out some context, but I don't disagree with that. I think Ground Advantage in particular has proved to be pretty popular with sellers. It's fairly economical. It's fairly easy to use. You get the $100 of insurance. There are some definite benefits there. The other side of that is that they have systematically restricted other partner programs like the UPS SurePost and those sorts of things, taking away their piece of that service, which has also made them by default much more attractive because some of these other options have just gone away because of decisions that they've made. So again, you're going to put your most positive spin on your resignation letter, I guess, but it's leaves out a little bit of context, in my opinion. The new Ground Advantage service, they said, has been generally well received. Not so much, though, his 10-year Delivering for America plan that calls for a major transformation of the postal network. I'm not going to get into that in this episode, but there have been several articles over the last week that talk about studies and investigations that have been done in Indianapolis and at multiple postal stations in Georgia that have found all kinds of problems. Obviously, anybody who's shipping anything, and as I mentioned in an aside earlier in this episode, things are not getting scanned as they work through the system. So there are still tons of problems, many of which existed before this plan came into place, but a lot of them which have been caused by this plan, which has been criticized and has led to major disruptions in select areas as it rolls out. The article continues. Under DeJoy, the USPS has also downgraded its delivery standards, leading to longer delivery times for mail, especially to rural areas of the country, which we have talked about as well. Last month, the Postal Regulatory Commission issued a damning report on the impact of that plan. The chairperson of the USPS Board of Governors praised DeJoy in their press release, saying it will be up to the Board of Governors to appoint his successor. One thing to bear in mind there is, and again, it's an article I'm not going to get into here today, there was some discussion midweek that President Trump is potentially going to disband the USPS Board of Governors and take control of the post office internal to the executive branch, potentially, possibly with an eye on privatization. So the Postal Service is obviously in a great state of flux at the moment, and I don't know where that goes. Hopefully it just continues to improve, that the next person who comes in is able to move it in the right direction. I'm not convinced that privatization is the way to go. I'm not convinced personally, at the rate that the Postal Service loses money, that you could convince a private company to come in and try to take it over. There was a lot of discussion that a lot of the things that DeJoy was doing was to set the service up to be privatized. Let me know in the comments what your take is on it. I would think that most of those things would potentially lead to more increases in prices and more degradation in service. I could be wrong on that, but I don't know. I'm not. I worry about the future of the Postal Service, which by and large, despite all of its problems, as I've said on this show previously, most of the time does a pretty remarkable job. It is, I talk about media mail all the time and the price increases that we've seen, but the fact that I can ship a 1-pound book from my basement here in the greater Cincinnati area to a customer in Alaska for $4.63, and it gets there in a relatively timely fashion, is really an incredible service. If you take the time to think about it, we feel like we take for granted that this should be easy and simple and inexpensive, because it always has been inexpensive to the end consumer. But again, the Postal Service has lost money for years. So hopefully they get it sorted out, because I think by and large it is a terrific service, and I much prefer to use it myself to the others. You can let me know in the comments what you think of that. Anyway, thank you so much for spending a little bit of your time here with me this week. If you got something out of this episode, please do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button if you are watching on YouTube. If you're not currently a follower of the podcast or a subscriber to the YouTube channel, please consider doing that as well. I would love to have you on board. With that, my friends, it's time to sell. Thanks, guys. You have been listening to the Galaxy CDs Rocks and Flips Reseller Talk podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next time.